We're in an area, and this is another reason that alfalfa was tough to get to succeed here in the late 1700s. But we're at an area where we need to lime, and this is another reason for past failures. It's a very, very important concept, and not a new concepts with lime, phosphates, and potash as well. We've known this for a long, long time. This is an old World War II poster. A little bit on again, this is a long topic. I'm gonna fly through these. They're in your notes, but I combined a few slides just to make me talk through this quickly. But we talked about soil testing. Avoid deep sands, those Pepsi bottle or Coke bottle sands. It needs to have a little organic matter, a little loam in it. But you know, it's pretty tolerant of well-drained sandy loam soils, but very sandy soils you're going to have issues with. Need to control that residue of planting into Bermuda grass. We can talk about how to establish it into Bermuda grass if anybody's really interested in that. That's something we need to do a lot more education on and a lot more demos on. I think it's got a lot of potential in this area. No-till drill in December to mid-October, or if you're putting it into Bermuda grass, near when that Bermuda grass goes dormant. And we typically recommend, these are a little heavy maybe, but 20 to 25 pounds in 7-inch rows, 11 to 13 pounds in 15-inch rows. This is coated seed, so your actual rates are, you know, you might want to, I kind of target 17, 18 pounds of seed is what I'm typically targeting in 7-inch rows in a well-prepared seed bed. That may need to be adjusted depending on your conditions. Depth is important, 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep. Very important to manage weed pressure, particularly grassy weeds, ryegrass. That's where the Roundup Ready trait really comes in handy, although you've got other good herbicides, conventional herbicides for that. Insects can be an issue, and the later you wait to cut that first time, the more persistent that tends to make that crop. So kind of mid full bloom cutting, that first cutting of the first year only, would help your stand, depending on weed pressure. Again, we've talked about pH. Potassium is critical. Sample every year and put that potassium in particular out in split applications. Maintain P. Will always need boron, almost always need molybdenum. And poultry litter is an excellent sort. I know you're putting nitrogen out, but you're also putting a lot of phosphorus, some micronutrients out as well. So poultry litter with a supplement of potassium is a very effective fertilizer, a very economical fertilizer for these alfalfa stands. It seems counterintuitive because everybody's caught up on the nitrogen in the litter, but it's a great fertilizer source for this alfalfa, particularly alfalfa and Bermuda grass. Last slide, really. I've got one more summary slide, but we could talk a lot on stored harvest management, hay baleage management. Important to cut on the calendar. Once you make that first cut, cuttings every 24 to 35 days, depending on your situations, is very important, which makes juggling with rain difficult. So you've got a little flexibility there, but not very much, and that's the big problem, is rain and humidity. Conditioners are, let's call them mandatory. They're not, but they're really necessary, really helpful in situations where you're wanting to put up dry hay in particular. Curing aids like propionic acid and other aids are preservatives are also important. Timing of tedding, lots of things we can talk about here, but due to time we'll go on. And it's very effective as a baleage crop if you're going to feed it on your own farm as well. That takes a lot of the rain risk out. I'd say it takes essentially all of the rain risk out. All right, so we got a viable option here. It's not a low maintenance option. It's not a low management option, but it's something that's very helpful on many farms, really, where you're looking for higher quality forages. We need to be very careful selecting that variety and selecting the site that we plant that on. I do think a lot more producers should think about putting this into Bermuda grass if they're looking for a higher quality forage for their herd, and that's you know, and when you're putting it into Bermuda grass, we need to consider not only input costs, but also if you're feeding it to your cattle, the decreased supplemental feed needs that you're going to have. You've got to credit the higher protein of that Bermuda grass to your operation. Again, we talked about soil fertility and characteristics. Herbicide residues are something I didn't mention. If you're putting it in that Bermuda grass, look back at your herbicide record and make sure you haven't put Graze On or Graze On Next. Something with a long broadleaf residual like picloram or aminopyrrolid. Look at those records and see how long it's been since that's been applied before you put that seed out.
Alfalfa is more sensitive to those than clover and that sort of thing.
They're all very sensitive, but that's an issue. All right, I believe that's it.
And particularly on the site selection, if it's a Bermuda grass field that you have used poultry litter over the years, you may have the P and K levels that you're going to want for that.
Peas, with a lot of high litter applications, typically have plenty of P, and they've also got high calcium. Oftentimes, the any subsoil acidity problem's been corrected with salts, so there are real benefits to the poultry litter.